Today's lesson is called Complicated Borders, Day 2. Hi everyone, my name is Jeff.
And I am Roger. Today we're going to continue talking about complicated borders. In parts of the world, of course, there are some unusual borders between countries where one country has territory inside another one and vice versa. And we talked about the case of Nassau last time, where it's in the Netherlands, but not all of it's Dutch. There are actually small parcels of Belgian land inside this Dutch territory.
Day 1 of this article, of this lesson, made my head hurt. I believe what we realized was that there is a piece of the Netherlands that is inside of Belgium, and that piece of Belgium is inside of the Netherlands. And that's the end of it, but that is really a complicated situation diplomatically. Usually you've got one country and the next country is next to it, and those two countries are separated by an international border, and everyone is happy. But here, things are not clear-cut and simple. Remember, we're talking about complicated borders. So as far as our lesson is concerned, confusion will reign, at least as far as the borders are concerned. Anyways, folks, we're halfway through our discussion of complicated borders, and we'll start reading day 2 of our lesson right after our short break, so don't go away.
We tend to think of international borders in terms of land and space, but did you know that borders can also be drawn across the dimension of time? This is the case of condominiums.
Okay, everybody, our lesson today begins with a kind of introduction. It says here, we tend to think of international borders in terms of land and space. Yes, that's true if you talk about the international border between, say, Mexico and the United States. For the most part, people think of it in terms of the land and the space, okay? So basically the border between, say, Texas and Tamaulipas, Mexico, would be the Rio Grande River or Rio Bravo del Norte, depending on which side of the border you are. But in any case, that's all in terms of land and space. Here's our border, or here's our land, here's yours, etc. But did you know that borders can also be drawn across the dimension of time? Okay, so yes, indeed, you can also draw a border between two political entities using the concept of time and not just using the concept of land and space. We're talking about the dimension of time. When we talk about dimensions, oftentimes we talk about the dimensions of space, what width, height, and depth, etc. That would be the dimensions of space. But also there's the other one in terms of time, which is oftentimes referred to as the fourth dimension.
There you go. Now, very simply, a dimension is usually just a basic element of something. It's an irreducible, fundamental part of something. And when you measure something, very often you do use the dimensions that Roger just mentioned. But here we're talking about borders that are drawn across the dimension of time. Now, if I were to measure things, I would love to deal with land and space. Those things are very easy to measure, but the dimension of time? We're going to draw a border based on a clock or time on a clock or something like that. So a border might expire at a certain moment in the future or something like that. How strange, how weird, how chiguai. I thought that day 1 of our article was complicated, where we had a country instead of a country, No. The level of confusion has just gone up a notch because we're drawing borders, complicated borders across time, the dimension of time. And apparently this actually exists, okay? There are these borders that are drawn across time. Yes, this is the case of condominiums, or this is the case with condominiums. Now, a condominium, what is that? Well, a condominium is similar to an apartment building. In the United States, very often, a condo or a condominium will be an apartment building near the beach or something like that. But very clearly here, a condominium is similar to an apartment building, okay? It's an apartment building or a set of apartment buildings that are governed in a certain way, and we'll have more on this soon. So not only is the condominium the building, okay, it's also the way, I believe, that these buildings, these apartment buildings known as condominiums, are governed.
Exactly. So, yes, we're talking about condominiums, but, I'm from the country, and most people I knew when I was growing up owned their own houses, and condominiums were things you heard about in TV shows or in the big cities like New York or places in Florida or whatever in California that were near the oceans. So, yes, indeed, condominiums were kind of far away from me when I was growing up, but in any case, the word condominium today does most often refer to some kind of housing unit that is part of a larger building that people individually own. But we're going to talk about a different shade of meaning of the word condominium in just a second. So let's move on now to the next part of our lesson, and we'll listen to it first.
Today, the word condominium brings images of modern apartments in high-rise buildings to mind. Long ago, however, it strictly referenced a territory over which two countries assumed joint ownership. One notable condominium, which is also the world's oldest and smallest, is Pheasant Island. Approximately 7,000 square meters in size, this tiny island is located in the Bidassoa River between France and Spain. Every February, French representatives meet their Spanish counterparts there to hand over control of the island. Every August, Spain returns the island to France. These exchanges have taken place over 700 times.
大家好，今天第一个单字我们看到的是 reference， 这个字当作动词，代表提到或是与点点点有关的意思。例如 The novel references historical events that took place during the life of its main character. 这本小说提及书中主角一生中所经历过的历史事件。接下来我们看到的单字是 notable， 这个字当作形容词，它有著名的或是显著的或是值得注意的意思。所以我们可以说New York is the site of several notable museums. 纽约有一些著名的博物馆。再来我们看到的单字是 approximately， 这个字当作副词，代表大约的、大概的意思。例如 The film has lost approximately $40 million for the studio. 这部电影已经让电影工作室赔了约4000万元。
Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, we started talking about condos or condominiums. And today, the word condominium, our article continues, today the word condominium brings images of modern apartments in high-rise buildings to mind. Okay, this word brings these things to mind. Okay, and here we've got this phrase to bring something to mind. It's in two parts. Okay, notice at the end of the phrase is at the end of the sentence. But yes, you bring something to mind. That's the idea here. Anyways, the phrase to bring to mind or to bring something to mind means to cause to remember. Okay, so you should remember something, or an image should come into your mind when you hear a word like condominium or when something happens to you. Anyways, one way or another, very simply, if something brings something to mind or if something brings something to your mind, it causes you to think of someone or something. That's all there is to it. And today, the word condominium, it brings an image to mind. To my mind, at least, I think of an apartment near the beach or something like that. Usually a modern apartment building.
Right, so that's what comes to mind when you hear the word condominium, a modern apartment or something like that in a high-rise building. High-rise, of course, is a building that's very tall. Now, long ago, however, it strictly referenced something else here. To reference means it referred to that thing. So many, many years ago, perhaps maybe even centuries ago, when you heard the word condominium, you did not think of an apartment inside a high-rise building. You thought of something else. It referenced some kind of agreement between two different countries.
Yeah, it strictly referenced a territory over which two countries assumed joint ownership. Yeah, the word condominium could refer to the buildings, but now we're talking about how these buildings are governed or the way in which they are governed. And here we're saying that in a condominium situation, two countries assume joint ownership of something. How about that? Anyways, yes, this word, it used to strictly reference something. That is, it referred to or pointed to or indicated this agreement, I should say. It indicated this agreement alone. But more generally, like Roger said before, to refer to something is to mention or to point out or to indicate something. Now, one notable condominium, our article continues, which is also the world's oldest and smallest, is Pheasant Island. Now, I know what a pheasant is, Roger, but Pheasant Island, have you ever heard of this place?
No, I haven't until today, but this is very interesting. This would be between France and Spain. It's probably in a river there, so we've got this Pheasant Island there. It's pretty small, though, approximately 7,000 square meters in size. This tiny island is located in the Bidassoa River between France and Spain. Okay, so there you go. That's its approximate size. More or less, it's 7,000 square meters in area, approximately 7,000 square meters or 7 square kilometers in size.
So you're saying it's about 7,000 square meters in size?
That's what I'm saying, or at least that's what the article
You're
says.
saying it's almost 7,000 square meters in size.
Or maybe a little bit more, give or take a couple of hundred meters or so.
It's close to 7,000 meters in size.
There you go. And we also can tell from this sentence its location. So it's between Spain and France. And every February, French representatives meet their Spanish counterparts there to hand over control of the island. Interesting. That's what happens in one part of the year in February, which I suppose is going to happen here pretty soon, or at least it just did happen a couple months ago. And so they turn it over once every 6 months or so, and then 6 months later, I guess, then they turn it over to the other country as well. As it says later on in the sentence, every August, which again is 6 months later, Spain returns the island to France. So France gets it later in the summer and through the fall and through most of the winter, and then they switch it around again.
So there you have it. That's a border drawn across the dimension of time. Now, earlier, I was confused by this concept. I thought that, wow, you've got a situation as people are watching a clock or waiting for some stopwatch to tick down or something like that. I thought that seemed a bit weird to me. But here, this particular arrangement doesn't really seem all that complicated. I know that the concept of drawing a border across time does sound weird and complicated, but here the situation is quite civilized and sounds like it's a really kind of cool situation. Maybe they have a ceremony to hand over, or to hand back, I should say, ownership of this island. How interesting. Anyways, there are no watches or stopwatches or clocks or anything here. There's just a calendar. Every February, French representatives meet their Spanish counterparts there on Pheasant Island to hand over control of the island. And then every August, Spain returns the island to France. So how interesting. Pheasant Island sure is notable. Yeah, we had that word earlier. The word notable means worthy of your attention and time, or it means remarkable. This is a very interesting place, so we're saying that this arrangement is notable, or this condominium arrangement, I should say, is notable. Now, we've got one more word to talk about here. We've got this word counterpart to talk about, okay? When we're talking about counterparts, we're talking about different people who do the same things or who function similarly in different places. Actually, when I come to think of it, counterparts are not unlike long-lost twins.
Indeed. I could also think of the example when I was in 6th grade. We had a class project in which we were supposed to try to find pen pals with our counterparts at another school in another state in the United States somewhere. So we wrote to other 6th graders at another school. Those 6th graders were our counterparts, people in the same situation as us, but in a different place. So these are the different counterparts, representatives from France and representatives from Spain. They meet at the island to hand over control of the island, and they've been doing this for over 300 years. These exchanges have taken place over 700 times. So let's find out some more about the history of this arrangement on Pheasant Island. Let's now listen to the final part of our lesson right now.
This peculiar arrangement began over 300 years ago with the signing of the Treaty of the Pyrenees on Pheasant Island following the end of the 30 Years' War. The treaty was meant to be a symbol of peace between France and Spain. While the river island is off limits to tourists, it can be admired from the shore of either country. These unique places make us realize that borders aren't just lines on a map. In some parts of the world, they can pose real ongoing challenges.
第三部分我们看到的单字是 peculiar， 这个字当作形容词，它有奇怪的、不寻常的或是独特的意思。例如，那名男子走路的方式很奇怪，英文可以这么说 That man walks in a very peculiar way. 接下来我们看到的单字是 treaty， 这个字当作名词，代表国家间的条约、协定的意思。所以我们可以说 The government recently signed a treaty with a foreign country. 政府最近和某国签订条约。今天最后一个单字我们看到的是 ongoing， 这个字当作形容词，它有持续存在的或是进行中的意思。所以我们可以说 The ongoing death penalty debate will not be resolved soon. 关于死刑的辩论持续进行着，不会太快落幕。
All right, everyone, we're back, and we're here to wrap up our article on complicated borders. Before the break, we were learning about Pheasant Island. There's a very interesting agreement between France and Spain as far as Pheasant Island is concerned. Yes, there is this situation called a condominium there, a situation in which these two countries both own this island, but they don't own the island at the same time. During one part of the year, Spain owns the island, and during the other part of the year, France owns the island. How about that? And get this, they've exchanged ownership over 700 times. How interesting.
Interesting. That's pretty cool. It's amazing that the French and the Spaniards can do that so many times and not end up fighting over the island. But in any case, this peculiar arrangement, this unusual, this rather strange arrangement began over 300 years ago with the signing of the Treaty of the Pyrenees on Pheasant Island following the end of the 30 Years' War. The 30 Years' War happened in the early 1600s. It involved, yes, Spain and France, but also I think Sweden was involved, and so was the Holy Roman Empire, and they were fighting over, Europe and stuff like that. And in any case, they finally decided, hey, let's stop shooting each other. It's a bunch of nonsense. It's kind of silly. So they decided to sign a treaty, at least probably several different treaties, but this treaty or this agreement was signed on Pheasant Island after the end of that 30 Years' War. Now, a treaty, of course, as I mentioned in passing here, is an agreement between two countries or more, two or more countries, in which they agree to some future terms, and hopefully they can get along well after that. So yes, the war was over, and they thought, hey, we should probably stop fighting. People get killed that way. It's bad for the economy. Let's stop fighting. Let's learn to get along with each other. And so let's sign this treaty, and we'll agree to it, and we'll be buddies after that.
There you go. A treaty, very simply, is a formal agreement between two or more countries that has been approved by both or all of the countries that are in question here. We also have this word peculiar to talk about. The word peculiar means unusual or strange. That's all there is to it. Anyways, more on this treaty. The treaty was meant to be a symbol of peace between France and Spain, and while the river island is off limits to tourists, it can be admired from the shore of either country. How about that? Anyways, folks, like I said before, we are here to wrap up today's article, so let's go ahead and do it. Only 2 sentences remain.
Okay, so these unique places make us realize that borders aren't just lines on a map. In some parts of the world, they can pose real, ongoing challenges. So those are just a couple of examples of border anomalies in the world that are going on. If you check out Pheasant Island from the shore of that river, you can probably see either the French flag flying above it or the Spanish flag, depending on what time of year. But again, there are other parts of the world that have similar situations. Hopefully, people won't be fighting over those things. These are ongoing challenges. If something's ongoing, it's continuing, and it hasn't been resolved yet.
Yep, it's in progress. It's still continuing. It's still going on. Anyways, our entire lesson on complicated borders is now in the books, so it's time for us to say bye-bye, but don't go away. The Chinese teacher is on her way.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第3部分有一个句子是 The treaty was meant to be a symbol of peace between France and Spain. 这个条约是作为法国和西班牙的和平象征。那这边要介绍的是 be meant to 加上原形动词的几种常见用法。好，这个句型它的主词可以是人或是事物。那第一种用法是表达用意是什么，目的是什么。例如 The SPF rating is meant to show how effective a sunscreen is against ultraviolet rays. 阳光防晒系数是用来显示防晒乳阻挡紫外线的成效。好，第二种用法是表达本来应该怎么样，但却没有怎么样。那在这个用法当中 be 动词常常是用过去式表达。例如 The meeting was meant to take place this Tuesday. 那场会议本来应该在这礼拜二举行的，可是却没有如期举行。好，那第三种是表达注定怎么样，本该怎么样。例如 If two people are meant to be together, nothing can ever separate them. 如果两个人注定在一起，任何事情都没办法使他们分开的。哦，好浪漫。好，接着我们读到课文下一句While the river island is off limits to tourists, it can be admired from the shore of either country. 虽然游客禁止进入这个河中小岛，但可以从这两个国家的岸边欣赏。那句中的 off limits 它是形容词，形容禁止进入的，后面常常会搭配介系词 to， 所以 off limits to visitors 就表示禁止游客进入。另外 off limits 也可以用来表达某事物它是禁忌话题。举例来说 In his opinion, no topic is off limits when it comes to comedy. 他认为喜剧的话题百无禁忌，没有什么话题是不能谈的。好，接着我们读到课文最后一句，他说 In some parts of the world, they can pose real ongoing challenges. 在世界上的某些地方，边界可能造成实实在在持续不间断的考验。那这边要帮同学们补充 pose 常见的搭配词。pose 当动词，它有造成引起的语义。那这个受词呢，常常是表示风险或是表示问题的名词。常见的搭配词包含 pose a risk 表示造成风险， pose a threat 造成威胁， pose a danger 造成危险，pose a problem 造成问题， pose a challenge 造成考验，带来挑战， pose a hazard 表示造成危险，等等等等。好，那这些用法呢，后面都可以接 to 再加名词来表达对某人或某事物造成什么。例如 Smog poses a serious threat to our health. 雾霾对我们的健康造成严重的威胁。好，那么以上是今天的重点整理，我们接着回顾今天的单字吧。
Reference. During the interview, Kayla referenced her experience working at a library. Notable. Our research produced some notable results that may help. Approximately. The author's first novel was approximately 1,200 pages long. Peculiar. John had a very peculiar laugh that never failed to draw attention. Treaty. The treaty allows for free trade between the two countries. Ongoing. There is an ongoing discussion over the issue.
Discussion starter starts now!
Here's our discussion starter for today. After reading about Barl Hertog, Barl Nassau, and Pheasant Island, are you interested in visiting any of these areas? Why or why not?
I think it would be exciting to explore Pheasant Island because tourists aren't allowed to go there. Why is this the case? Why can't I visit Pheasant Island? I am now intrigued and interested in this island. My curiosity has gotten the best of me. I want to go to Pheasant Island because I'm not allowed to go to Pheasant Island.
Well, if I have the opportunity, I want to check out the situation in Barl Nassau there because I happen to have some Dutch blood in my family, so I would go there to try to feel any kind of tingling sensation in my skin knowing that, hey, my ancestors once fought over this territory.
Okay, everyone. With that, today's article is now complete. But as always, we sure hope that you guys have enjoyed reading along with us. Anyways, I'm Jeff.
I am Roger.
See you next time.